Maledictus is a horror and creepypasta narration podcast. All pieces read on the Maledictus podcast are either in the public domain, share-alike licensed, or used with explicit written consent from the author. Listener discretion is advised.
Maledictus, fear the night. Maledictus, holy might. Suffer cruel, doomed in fright. Maledictus, eternal light.
The following podcast is brought to you in part by our partnership with W Energy Drink. What is this W that everyone is talking about lately? W is a clean energy drink that is made to give you focus with no crash, jitters, or angst like those other energy drinks. Perfect for those late night ghost hunting expeditions or listening to scary stories that will terrify you in the dark. W contains vitamins, amino acids, nootropics, and 150 milligrams of caffeine for that extra energy boost. It contains absolutely zero sugar, no fillers, no artificial colors or dyes, no secret formulas, hidden ingredients, and is 100% gluten-free. Drink comes out to about $1 per drink or less. It's much cheaper than those other canned energy drinks. Even better, if you use our promotional code Maledictus at checkout, you will receive 10% off your order. And it helps to support our podcast. So order W today and be better.
This podcast may contain adult themes or adult situations. Viewer discretion is advised. 3:30. Written by Samael and Malfortuna. Narrated by Samael. The incessant howl of an alarm pierced the stillness of the night, dragging me from the depths of a restless slumber. I jolted awake, my body drenched in a cold sweat, every muscle aching with a profound exhaustion that seemed to permeate my very bones. The glowing digits of the clock read 3:30 a.m., a witching hour that had become all too familiar in recent days. With a groan, I reached for my phone, my fumbling fingers struggling to silence the alarm's persistent wail. As the screen flared to life, I squinted against its harsh glare, my sleep-fogged brain struggling to process the notifications that awaited me. A message from my doorbell camera, time-stamped just 5 minutes earlier, caught my eye. "Strange," I muttered, a frown creasing my brow. Being the sole inhabitant of a secluded house on the outskirts of town, unexpected visitors were a rarity, especially at such an ungodly hour. The camera served primarily as a sentinel against porch pirates during my absence, not as a herald of late-night callers. Curiosity piqued, I tapped the notification, and the video sprang to life on my screen. The camera's motion-activated floodlight illuminated the scene, casting harsh shadows across the weathered boards of my porch. And there, caught in the unforgiving glare, was an all-too-familiar figure. Myself. Clad in my favorite hoodie and well-worn jeans, my doppelganger strode purposefully towards the door, a nondescript shopping bag dangling from one hand. Confusion and disbelief warred within me as I watched this impossible scene unfold. Surely this had to be some kind of a glitch or malfunction, a trick of the light playing cruel games with my exhausted mind. But as I rewound the footage and played it again, there was no denying the uncanny resemblance. The figure on the screen was a perfect mirror image of myself, right down to the scuffed sneakers and the familiar slouch of the shoulders. Yet I had no memory of this nocturnal outing, no recollection of ever stepping foot outside my bedroom. A chill raced down my spine, and I found myself casting furtive glances around the darkened room, half expecting to find some evidence of my own somnambulistic wanderings. But everything was exactly as I had left it, my sneakers neatly aligned by the door, my hoodie hanging undisturbed in the closet, my keys resting on the nightstand where I always placed them. The unease that had been my constant companion these past few weeks surged to the forefront of my mind. No longer content to lurk in the shadows of my subconscious. Something was deeply, fundamentally wrong, and I could no longer ignore the gnawing sense of dread that had taken root in the pit of my stomach. With a trembling hand, I set the phone aside and swung my legs over the edge of the bed, the floorboards creaking beneath my bare feet as I stood. I had to investigate, to confront this mystery head-on before it consumed me entirely. The rational part of my mind whispered that there had to be a logical explanation. A malfunction in the camera system, a trick of the light, a forgotten late-night errand. But as I made my way downstairs, each step heavier than the last, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was descending into something far more sinister than a mere technical glitch. The shadows seemed to writhe and dance in the periphery of my vision, and the familiar contours of my home took on an almost alien quality in the pre-dawn gloom. By the time I reached the front door, my heart was pounding a staccato rhythm against my ribcage, and a cold sweat began to bead upon my brow. With a deep breath, I steeled myself and reached for the handle, half expecting it to be wrenched from my grasp by some unseen force. But the door swung open easily, revealing a night as still and silent as a tomb. The cool air caressed my skin as I stepped out onto the porch, the weathered boards creaking beneath my weight. I cast a wary glance around, searching for any sign of my mysterious doppelganger, or the enigmatic shopping bag that had been featured so prominently in the video. But the street was deserted, the houses lining the block dark and shuttered against the encroaching night. Frustrated and more than a little unnerved, I retreated back into the relative safety of my home, the lock clicking into place with a finality that did little to ease my racing thoughts. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I struggled to make sense of what I had just witnessed. "Maybe I'm losing it," I muttered, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Maybe this is just the first sign of a mental breakdown, some kind of stress-induced hallucination. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew that they rang hollow. There was something more at play here, something that defied rational explanation or easy dismissal. As much as I wanted to bury my head in the sand and pretend that everything was fine, I knew that I couldn't just ignore the truth any longer. Besides, if I continued on like this, I was going to be late for work. Over the next few days, I found myself consumed by a growing sense of paranoia, my every waking moment haunted by the specter of my own doppelganger. I would catch myself staring out the window for hours on end, my eyes searching the shadows for any sign of movement, my ears straining for the sound of footsteps on the porch. I barely slept, my nights plagued by vivid and disturbing dreams that left me shaken and disoriented upon waking. And in my waking hours, I pored over the footage from the doorbell camera, searching for any clue or detail that might shed light on the mystery, but each viewing only served to deepen my confusion and unease. Finally, Unable to bear the weight of my own uncertainty any longer, I decided to take action. I invested in a state-of-the-art security system, placing cameras in every room and hallway of my house. If there was anything amiss, any hint of an intruder or an unexplained presence, I was determined to catch it on film. At first, the footage was unremarkable, showing nothing more than my own mundane comings and goings. I watched myself putter around the kitchen, sprawl on the couch in front of the TV, and trudge up the stairs to bed each night. It was almost a relief to see myself engaged in such ordinary activities, a reassuring reminder that perhaps I wasn't as far gone as I had feared. But then, on the fourth night of my surveillance, something strange happened. I woke with a start, my heart pounding and my skin slick with sweat, with no memory of what had torn me from my slumber. Groggy and disoriented, I stumbled to the bathroom, flicking on the light and wincing at the sudden brightness. There, reflected in the mirror, was a sight that turned my blood to ice. My own face stared back at me, but there was something wrong, something terribly, horribly wrong. My eyes were blank and lifeless, my expression slack and utterly devoid of emotion. As I watched, my mouth began to move, forming words that I could not hear, but could feel reverberating through my skull. I recoiled in horror, my hand flying to my mouth as if to physically stem the flow of words. But the figure in the mirror continued to speak, its lips moving in a grotesque parody of speech. And as I watched, transfixed by the surreal spectacle, my reflection began to trace strange symbols on the glass, its fingers leaving behind glowing trails of eldritch light. Panic rose in my throat, threatening to choke me as I stumbled back from the mirror, my legs giving way beneath me. I collapsed to the floor, my breath coming in great heaving gasps as I tried to make sense of what I had just witnessed. There was no sense to be made, no rational explanation for the impossible scene that had just unfolded before my eyes. With trembling hands, I retrieved my phone and pulled up the footage from the bathroom camera, dreading what I might find, but unable to resist the morbid curiosity that compelled me forward. And there, captured in grainy black and white, was the same chilling scene that I had just witnessed firsthand. But the horror didn't end there. As I reviewed the footage from the other cameras, I began to notice strange anomalies, eerie occurrences that defied explanation. Orbs of light floated through the darkened rooms of my house, their ethereal glow casting strange shadows on the walls. And accompanying these ghostly apparitions were whispers, faint and indistinct, that seemed to emanate from the very air itself. I felt my sanity beginning to fray at the edges, my mind buckling under the weight of the impossible events that were unfolding around me. As I delved deeper into the footage, searching for answers that seemed to elude me at every turn, I began to uncover a sinister truth that threatened to shatter my very understanding of reality itself. There, in the depths of my own home, was a secret room that I had never known existed. A basement, hidden, accessible only through a cleverly concealed trapdoor that seemed to pulse with an ancient and malevolent energy. At the center of this unholy space was an altar, stained with the blood of untold sacrifices, adorned with the grisly trophies of some unspeakable ritual. With mounting horror, I watched as my own doppelganger moved through this nightmarish space, its movements jerky and unnatural, as if puppeted by some unseen force. It spoke in tongues, its voice a guttural rasp that sent shivers down my spine, and its hands moved with a deftness and precision that belied their apparent clumsiness. There, scattered upon the altar like so many broken playthings, were the unmistakable signs of an innocence long since shattered. Small plastic bracelets, the kind that children might wear, lay askew upon the blood-stained surface, their bright colors a jarring contrast to the darkness that surrounded them. And nearby, a small shoe, its laces untied, and its sole scuffed from countless hours of play, seemed to stare back at me with mute accusation. I felt the bile rise in my throat, my stomach churning with a sense of sickness that went far beyond mere physical revulsion. For in that moment, I knew with a terrible certainty that I had stumbled upon a truth that was never meant to be uncovered, a truth that spoke of an evil so profound, so utterly alien to the world that I thought I knew, that it threatened to shatter the very foundations of my sanity. With a choked sob, I tore myself away from the screen, my fingers trembling as I fought to regain some semblance of control. But it was too late. The images were seared into my mind, a twisted tapestry of horror that I knew would haunt me until my dying day. As I sat there, huddled on the floor of my once familiar home, I knew I had no choice but to confront the darkness that had taken root within me, to descend once more into that unholy basement and face the unspeakable truth that lay waiting there. The alternative was a madness beyond imagining, a slow and inexorable descent into a darkness from which there could be no escape. Though every fiber of my being recoiled at the thought of what lay ahead, I knew that I had no choice but to see this nightmare through to its bitter end. With a trembling hand, I reached for the trap door, my fingers closing around the rusted metal of the handle. And as I began to descend into the depths of my own personal hell, I could only pray that somewhere, in the midst of all this madness, there might still be a glimmer of hope waiting to be found. As I descended into the darkness, the air grew thick and heavy, weighing upon me like a physical force. The stairs creaked and groaned beneath my feet, and each step a struggle against the overwhelming sense of dread that threatened to engulf me. Then at last, as I stood before the altar, its surface slick with the blood of untold atrocities, the symbols carved into its base seemed to writhe and dance in the flickering light of the candles, their meanings obscure yet somehow horribly familiar. With trembling fingers, I reached out to touch the surface of the altar, half expecting to feel the warm stickiness of fresh blood beneath my fingertips. But the stone was cold and dry, its secrets long since buried beneath the dust of ages. Then from the shadows of the altar I heard it, a voice, low and rasping, that seemed to emanate from the very depths of the abyss itself.
You have come far, my child,
it whispered, its words slithering into my mind like venomous serpents.
but the journey is not yet over. There is still much to be done, much to be sacrificed before the ritual can be complete.
I recoiled in horror, my heart pounding in my chest as I searched the shadows for the source of the voice. But there was nothing there, only the endless darkness and the echo of my own ragged breathing. Who are you? I demanded, my voice shaking with a fear that I could no longer control. What do you want from me?
I am the voice of the void,
the creature replied, its words dripping with a malevolence that chilled me to the bone.
The whisper in the dark, the hunger that gnaws at the edge of your sanity. And what I want, my child, is nothing less than your complete and utter surrender.
I shook my head, my mind reeling with the implications of the creature's words. I won't do it, I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. I won't be part of your twisted games, your sick rituals. I won't let you use me to hurt anyone. The creature laughed, a sound that was at once mocking and pitying.
Oh, but you already have, my child. The blood on your hands, the innocence shattered upon this altar. All of it is your doing, whether you remember it or not.
With those words, the memories came flooding back into my mind, a twisted kaleidoscope of horror and depravity that threatened to shatter my very soul. I saw myself moving through the shadows of the night, stalking the innocent and unsuspecting. I saw the children, their eyes wide with fear and confusion as I lured them away from the safety of their homes and into the depths of my own personal hell. I saw the rituals, the blood, and the sacrifice, the twisted offerings made to a darkness that I could no longer comprehend. And through it all, I heard the laughter of the creature, the voice in the void, urging me on to greater and greater depths of madness. No, I whispered, my voice cracking with despair. No, it can't be true. I couldn't have done those things. I couldn't. But even as the words left my lips, I knew that they were a lie. The truth was there, etched into my very soul, a stain that could never be washed away. As I knelt there before the altar of my own damnation, I knew that I only had two choices left to me: to succumb to the darkness, to embrace the madness that had taken root within me and become a monster that the voice of the void had always known me to be, or to fight, to cling to the last shreds of my humanity, and to face the consequences of my actions, no matter how terrible they might be. In the end, it was the thought of the children that made the decision for me, the memory of their faces, their laughter and their tears, the innocence that I had stolen from them in the name of a darkness that I hated, that I loathed. I couldn't let their sacrifice be in vain. I couldn't let the voice of the void win, no matter the cost to my own soul. And so, with a final desperate cry of defiance, I rose to my feet and turned to face the darkness that had consumed me for so long. I would fight with every last ounce of strength, of will that I possessed, to reclaim the light that had been stolen from me. Even as I steeled myself for the battle to come, I knew that the road ahead would be long and treacherous, fraught with untold horrors and challenges that would test the very limits of my sanity. For the voice of the void was not so easily silenced, and the darkness that had taken root within me would not relinquish without a fight. As I ascended the stairs, leaving the altar and its grisly secrets behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a journey that would lead me to the very edges of the abyss itself. But for now, for this moment, I had a purpose, a reason to keep fighting. And that, in the end, would have to be enough. If you'd like to make suggestions for future podcasts readings, or you'd like to submit stories of your own to be read, please contact us at stories@aedfilms.com.